Hello, this is Paula Harris. This is part two of our incredibly interesting conversation with Cynthia Sue Larson. Where are you, in San Francisco? Where are you now? In San
I'm in
Francisco?
Berkeley. I
In
came to study
Berkeley.
at UC Berkeley. I got my physics degree there, and I love Berkeley, love the weather, the people. I like being so close to the university.
Well, I love university too. I mean, I'm basically a teacher. What's the weather like today there in San Francisco?
It's beautiful, blue skies, sunshine. We had rain the last couple of weeks, but today looks sunny and clear, so very nice.
So you're always in contact with thinkers, with people that have creative ideas,
Yes.
and everybody. I mean, you're going to be with me for artificial intelligence, but you're most well known for the Mandela effect.
Right, right. Yeah, I've
So
been studying this phenomenon for over 20 years and dedicated, you could say I've dedicated my research to it. What I call reality shifts. My website is realityshifters.com, but now I'm the president of the International Mandela Effect Conference Incorporated, which is a nonprofit and will eventually be collecting charitable donations to contribute toward research fund grants that we will present to researchers in the field of mind-matter interaction.
okay, now for the people that can you define the Mandela effect for them and include the time element that's so fascinating.
Okay, yeah, so people know about the Mandela effect. The term was coined around 2009, 2010. And I think I would give credit to Art Bell for really noticing that Nelson Mandela was alive again after he had passed away, because Art Bell on his Coast to Coast show was one of the first people to mention it. But then blogger Fiona Broome came along and she kind of brought it to public awareness and popularized the term around 2009, 2010. However, as I said, I've been I should explain what that is. Okay, the Mandela effect itself is named after Nelson Mandela, and the very big idea that it's possible for someone that you know for sure had passed away. You've seen maybe the death reported on TV, newspapers, reputable sources of information, not questionable, false news, but real stuff. Like you really did see the news. It was real. You saw it. And then you find out, wow, Nelson Mandela is alive. Like I noticed, he's doing something in the United Kingdom. What? That was surprising. And then he passed away a few years ago. So I do remember that Nelson Mandela died. I thought maybe the late 80s or 90s. Didn't really know exactly when,
Is
but
this mostly from the media or is from his people? Because it seems so weird. When somebody dies, they have an obituary or something.
they do. Well, sometimes, like I've seen reports of people who died in my personal life, and it's not so much a celebrity, but usually it would not be someone like a close family member, or it wouldn't be my best friend. It would be someone kind of distant. And I think that's what's key, is that it's on your peripheral vision. So it's not your focal point of awareness, not someone you interact with every day. It's not going to be your boss that's alive again, or your child, or your parent, or your spouse, but it's usually, like in this case, a sort of for me, a distant political figure. People that live in Africa did not tend to report anything about Nelson Mandela being alive again. But he's one of many alive again reports that I've been tracking already uh, since the 1990s. For me, when I published my book, Reality Shifts, I've got the story in this book about an actor who was on Dallas, and he was in I Dream of Jeannie. Larry Hagman, he was an
Yeah,
actor that,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and for me, he died, and then strangely, he was alive again. And so I was noticing that in the 1990s, and that's why I wrote about it when I first published the first edition of this book in the 1990s, that Larry Hagman was alive again. And what is going on with that? Because now the story is he just had some kind of, organ failure, but they operated successfully, and now he's doing just fine. Back in the 90s, I think he's passed away since then. But the idea is big. It's just that we can witness these parallel realities that are absolutely real, and sometimes move around between them. And
You're talking about parallel realities, and all I can think of, because I think linearly, is parallel timelines.
okay,
That we have like choices to jump from one to the other. Is
That's
that a,
one way to look at it. Yes. The author Philip K. Dick spoke of orthogonal time, and he actually back in the 1980s he was already talking about what we now call the Mandela effect. He said you might be walking into a room, flipping the light switch where you think it is, but it's not there, and you might do other things. You're working with motor memory, but it doesn't work anymore. It's like you're in a different reality, like you're in an orthogonal reality. And I think that's a very good way to look at it because it has a multidimensional feeling to it. It's it's kind of hard for us to latch on to what's going on when this happens. But in my book, Reality Shifts, I'm talking about things appearing, disappearing, transforming, transporting. And also, I did have that experience where I'm trying to turn the control from my drying machine for my clothes, my laundry, and it worked differently than it used to. So that's exactly what it feels like. It's like, wow, what reality am I in? This isn't the one that I'm familiar with. This dryer works differently now. What happened? So my takeaway from all these experiences is that consciousness is the key, and it's basically we're getting an opportunity to become keenly aware of these dimensional levels of consciousness that we do have access to all the time.
and when you mentioned Philip Dick, you really hit me in the soft spot. He's my very favorite. Blade Runner,
Yes.
Minority Report, Paycheck. He was very much involved. Of course, he was also involved with the intelligence community because they're very interested in this, as they were in remote viewing and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And in Minority Report, they had instituted a police force that saw the crime before it was committed. So they arrested the people before they committed the crime because they knew they were going to commit it.
Right.
And yeah, and it was like so interesting. What it does to you, Cynthia, and that's why, I can't wait till your book comes out, The Mandela Effect, is it scrambles your brain to think in another way that what we think is real is really not real, because there's different types of real.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And I think I'm so glad you brought up the Minority Report and some of these other works like Blade Runner, because it gets into the AI, of course, but I think the big key.
That clip from I'm going to use that famous clip at the very end when the android saves Deckard, the bounty hunter, because he turns into, he's a machine, but they have that piece there where he's holding a dove, and then he goes, time to die, and then he lets go of the dove, which is a symbol for the soul. And that's so powerful. But your idea, and to go into more details of things, is that the reality that we remember isn't necessarily the reality that's here now.
Exactly. So facts do change. They can change and they do change. And we know this from quantum physics. So it's basically been shown that, it's always a multitude of possible histories actually do exist. We can see evidence of them. And that's kind of mind blowing. And we often don't focus on that. We humans are forward focused. We tend to think like, what's it going to be like in the future? How many possible futures do I have? And which one is definitely going to happen? But with quantum reality, we recognize its probabilities, but you have a lot to do with that. And the key to it that I get into with reality shifts is becoming aware that you can wake up in this kind of a dream, that we actually are living a very dreamlike experience right now. And some people notice that already, like this must be a dream, just with this whole shelter in place business.
Yeah, this whole coronavirus thing. Yeah, I know. Is this an alternate reality? I mean, was this not supposed to happen and then it happened? Or 10 years from now, we're going to forget that it happened because it really didn't happen? So this gets really tricky. What are you thinking?
Well, we tend to be upgraded by viruses. That we can credit our long-term memory to a virus that was joined with mammals about 300 million years ago. And that's the ARC protein, ARC protein. It works exactly like a coronavirus. It basically surrounds the RNA. And it learned to do that. That's how we have memories. That's how our neurons talk to each other. So basically, as humans, we're like 50% our human DNA that we think of, but then it's like another 50% has been upgrades through viruses and so forth. About every 100 years, the humans get an upgrade, if you want to call it that. Like around 1918, it was the so-called Spanish flu. And that was a huge pandemic. It really wiped out a large number of people. Many more people died than are projected to die right in this year. Thank goodness. So we're doing better, but we're still having the influence of whatever is in that virus affecting people that get it. And I've heard from some people telling me personally, they feel like they've been reset. And the scientists are saying that the brains are being changed. It's not just affecting the lungs and the heart, but it's having visceral, obvious changes to people's brains. So as usual, the virus is interacting, it's doing something, whether people feel like they're being affected or not. So it's interesting.
Well, I love the idea of being reset. Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole planet's being reset. It's not just us. I mean, we have to reset our system of education, our economy. We're resetting everything. Can you give us, though, before we close, about one or two more examples of the Mandela effect? Because
Oh,
you're
yes.
so fascinating when you start talking, because everybody goes, do you remember that Jiffy peanut butter? And I'm going, okay. It's like bringing me back to the old days.
Oh, yeah. And I grew up in Sacramento. I'm so glad you mentioned Jiffy. Well, we're having a free streaming conference on the Mandela effect. One of our speakers will be Evan Maitreya from Moneybag 73 channel. He's the guy that some people say knew that I was alive, that I died in a parallel reality. So Moneybags is so interesting. And Moneybag 73, he also knows the Sacramento area like I do. That's relevant because that is where they have a Jiffy burger with the Jiffy guy. It's like a little cartoon figure. You can see it on Moneybag 73 video. And they'll serve you a Jiffy hamburger, which Moneybag said is pretty good. I've never tried it myself, but I grew up in Sacramento. I remember hearing about Jiffy peanut butter. Even if you didn't grow up in Sacramento, California, a lot of people remember Jiffy peanut butter.
Me too. I'm one of them.
And now there's no trace of it anywhere unless you find it in the Mandela effect community. And that's where you're going to see people saying, I remember Jiffy.
We have to say they changed the name to Jif.
Well,
yeah.
And so before we had a movement like the Mandela effect, you would just think to yourself, I guess I'm confused. I guess I mixed it up with Skippy. I don't know. Why would I do that? I don't think I did that, but I guess I did. But now you realize, wait a minute, a whole bunch of people remember it to the point we've got a character named Jiffy, not Jif, but it's Jiffy Burger and Jiffy, the little cartoon character. So that's some pretty strong evidence. When people look for what they call residue, that's what they're talking about. And then you see it's not just, it hasn't always been Jif peanut butter and you're not just confused. This really did happen. But I think for me, the personal ones that are most relevant are the body changes in our physiology. That's mind-blowing because that affects like 7.7 billion people on the planet simultaneously, where I remember my heart was on the left, slightly to the left. So when we put our hand over our heart for the Pledge of Allegiance, where, your hand is over your heart. I remember getting my blood pressure taken on the left arm, not the right, so it's more accurate. And now the heart is in the center of the chest. So that's a big one. And then kidneys, I do martial arts and it used to, it's still called the kidney punch. Don't do a kidney punch, but now makes no sense. So I ask martial artists where do we avoid punching someone so that we don't do that illegal kidney punch? And they put their hands on their lower back like you do when you're resting and you're tired, like you hiked up a big hill, that kind of place. That's not where the kidneys are anymore. They've moved up under the relative safety of the rib cage. So it doesn't make any sense to avoid a kidney punch to that lower back area because the kidneys aren't there.
Whoa, this gets really, bizarre. You got a whole list of these things, don't you?
Yes, tons of them.
And do people that are really interested in this give you things more?
Yeah, I've been collecting individual Mandela effects, personal reality shifts for the last 20-something years, since 1999. So I've got one of the world's best resources showing exactly where, when, and how these individual Mandela effects or reality shifts were reported, proving that they're a worldwide phenomenon, that they've been going back at least for decades. So it's not something that just happened. So we don't need to get into conspiracy theories necessarily. I think when people look at what's going on, why is it happening? My personal take on it is you have to go to consciousness as usual, like I'm sure you would agree.
That's my secret word.
Yeah.
Everything that I do is conscious, everything.
And if they stop at it, if they don't go that far, then they haven't gone far enough.
But
So
they don't
any
understand
explanation
it.
that stops short of that, they missed the boat. They need to go a little deeper. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what it is? They don't understand it. So the only way I can define it, because for them it's woo new age word, okay?
Yeah.
I can only define it my way, and my way is being fully awake and aware of everything, and that everything that around you is awake and aware.
Yes.
Everything from the sidewalk to everything is awake and aware, and I'm awake and aware, and what I'm doing is navigating in a field of jello. So it's like, navigating in the field of consciousness is like jello. It's like everywhere. That's the only way I can like visualize it. And if you're aware that you're in this field, that everything that's around you is affected by that.
Yes.
And you are affected by the field.
Yes. That's a great way to describe it. I love it.
Yeah. In any case, I'm really looking forward to having you with us. You're still working on the Mandela effect.
Yes, the book. It's a Mandela Effect Society, so it's really about us. And things really got interesting this year, so it didn't make sense to publish the book till I include what's happening in this pandemic, because it's this whole, you know how that changes communities. So it's very interesting.
And people can reach you, and you've been on Gaia, so
Yes.
so people can reach you by your blog and your website.
Website is realityshifters.com, and then you can see my YouTube videos, the blog, Facebook, Twitter, all that good stuff. And I've got a podcast show on Dream Vision 7 Radio Network called Living the Quantum Dream. But everything, you can pretty much find it through realityshifters.com. Sign up for the monthly newsletter, and then you'll be in the loop hearing about our beautiful conference too, coming up in Laughlin. Yay!
Send me any more robot things that you get, like articles.
Yes.
Because I'm trying to give the outside world a feeling of this, but I also want to make it fun. So yeah, send me.
It is fun.
You get. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for coming on with us and talking to us, and you take care. See you soon.
Thank you, Paola. You too. Stay healthy.